Thank you very much, everyone, for joining me. I'm delighted that this week I am joined by a friend of mine I've known for quite a few years now. We've been kicking around the circuit, me and this guy, for quite a few years, and we've run into each other in the past, and we've had the opportunity to hang out with each other. He's an absolute car nut. I think you're going to be thrilled with his story and what he knows about cars and what he's doing with cars currently at the moment. But he's got such an enduring career. He's done so many other things other than cars. So, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the one and only Mr. Alex Riley!
Hey! Thank you very much. What a lovely intro there. I'm very humbled by it.
I think you deserve every single word of it. There you go.
Thank you. How you doing?
I'm all right. Not bad at all, mate. How are you doing? It's freedom now. We've got freedom.
Well, I know. I mean, to me, the jab is the greatest thing ever been invented. I mean, I tell you what happened when I got my second jab at the Sheffield Arena. Just as I was leaving, the woman who'd done it, who was volunteering her time, she said, "Thank you," and I burst into tears. It was that. I just thought, you're thanking me. I mean, this is the best gift I've ever had. And I couldn't speak. I was just all choked up. I was so all these volunteers were there, and it was the most wholesome thing I'd ever been involved in. And she was thanking me. So yeah, sorry, I didn't realise I was going to talk about that when you had me on here. I thought we were going to talk about cars.
We are.
I'm an emotional person.
Well, it's good, Alex. You know, I was the same. I come home as soon as. Well, I think the jab is the best thing that's ever been invented after beer. I think beer sort of comes first, and then the jab after, because one should follow the other. As soon as the world unlocked, mate, I'm running around hugging everyone. All those people I've missed, I'm just giving them a hug.
You're not supposed to be hugging people. They're not allowed to hug people yet. That's why the Delta variant is running amok. It's because of you. You're a super spreader.
Me. Super spreader. It does say in the rules that anyone with 2 jabs can hug another person with 2 jabs. So I will stop a random stranger on the street and say, "How many jabs you got?" And if they go 2, I go, "Come on, bring it in." I've just got to have my jab.
I mean, I think you should be locked up for that. I mean, that for me is irresponsible. But you've got to make your own choices.
The government said that I'm allowed to do it, so I'm doing it. So, Alex, your career is just phenomenal. I've got your IMDb database up here, and I can't go through them all because it will take an hour. But basically, the One Show, Let's Sing and Dance for Comic Relief, The Cars That Made Britain, The Classic Car Show, Secrets and Super Brands, Britain's Really Disgusting Drinks, Tea in the Park, Really Disgusting Food, Mischief, Mock of Balloons or Mocks of Balloons, Movies Greatest Cars, Designing Doctor Who, Comic Relief, Naughty Bits, England's Worst Football Team, 5 Disgusting Foods, Mastermind, A Dog That Ate My Homework, All Over the Workplace, Celebrity Headaches, and of course, The Car Years. I mean, I thought I was the busiest man in TV, but you've got this nailed.
Well, I'm prepared to do anything if I'm paid. That's basically it. I mean, being a freelancer and needing to pay a mortgage and feed a family, you will pretty much. There's not a lot. I mean, I don't turn a lot down. I'll be honest with you, Mike. I mean, there's been 1 or 2 things that I've thought were slightly unethical, but yeah, I mean, you've got to work, and if I'd have done all that stuff over a 5-year period, I'd be a millionaire. But unfortunately, it's been spread out so thinly that it's not quite worked out like that. But I'm still fighting.
You're still fighting. So in terms of how you got into TV in the first place, let's just tell people about that, because you've told me before, and it's a lovely story. So let's just tell people how you got into television.
Well, I used to, at the time, I was working in the world of European funding. And I obviously had an inkling that this was on its way out. But this was the late 90s, and I was watching Top Gear, my favourite programme, and there was an appeal. It said, would you like to move to leafy Birmingham? Would you like to be a researcher on Top Gear? And I thought, this is it, because I'd wanted to get into television. I've always been a sort of a show-off and a performer. And I thought, this is my chance. I'm obsessed with cars, and I want to do television. So it took them months and months and months. I mean, I remember I phoned them up after about 3 months of sending my application in, thinking that they'd forgotten it. And they went, "Oh, yeah, there's just like a big pile of applications on the boss's desk." And then I was like, waiting and waiting and waiting, and I had an interview, I think, and then I was on holiday in Turkey, and I was like phoning my mum, have you got any post? What's happened? Weeks are going by, and she'd got this letter, and she opened it, and it was like, oh, go on, then read it out, read it out. It was a really thin letter. I thought, this is it, it's over, and it went, oh, please bear with us. We're still going through all the applications, and we'll let you know. So it took about 6 months. And eventually I got the job as a researcher on Top Gear. So it was a dream come true. And it was a massive shock, because working in European funding and working in television, I've got to tell you, there couldn't be a bigger contrast between the two. And so it did take, and I just bought a flat in Sheffield, and then I was having to like live in digs in Birmingham. So I was paying mortgage and a rent, and I'd taken a several £1,000 pay cut to follow my dreams. And I was absolutely skint. And oh gosh, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. But you know, I've no regrets. Would I have ever got to meet you, Mike, if I hadn't have taken that leap of faith?
Oh, Alex, that is fantastic. That is such good. And then going from being a researcher onto Top Gear to being a host on Top Gear, how did that transpire?
Well, I'd only been there a short while, and the sort of editor of the show, obviously I would like trying to make people laugh, and you know, being a bit daft. And he went, oh, we'll have to get you on the show. We'll have to give you a run out, because at that time Top Gear was sort of like a kind of a separate enclave cut off from the rest of the BBC. It was like it could do whatever it wanted. The BBC were just happy for it to keep going, because it was a huge success. But then Jeremy Clarkson, I don't know if you've heard of him, he decided he was going to leave the show and go and do something else. He was sick of the way that the show was run. And suddenly the BBC had this kind of crisis of confidence, and they sort of took over the running of Top Gear. And so I didn't get my chance. But then years later, like about 3 years later, a new series producer took over and everything, and I'd still been there. And he said, go on, then I'll let you have a go. And I did 3 items on actual Top Gear. And I researched them, I wrote them, I wrote the voiceover, did everything, set up the shoots. And, I was really grateful to have the opportunity. I remember the first one I did, it was at this American lifestyle festival in Newark, where people get dressed up as like Native Americans, New York City cops, and various other sort of American cliches, and they just go crazy. And I ended up, the climax of the piece was me saying, well, if you can't beat them, join them. And I got dressed up as Elvis, ended up on the stage with the Lewis Gates Elvis Experience, doing blue suede shoes to an audience of complete blank faces, dressed up as American taxi drivers and cops and things, looking at me in bemusement. And then I remember that it went out on the Thursday, and I was like, right, when I walk out the door Friday morning, this is gonna change my life. I mean, people are gonna be stopping me in the street, and nobody ever mentioned it ever. So I learned an important lesson. I thought, flipping heck, I'll be walking down to Pebble Mill, and they'll be ripping me clothes off. They'll be wanting a piece of me. No, not a sausage, not a single sausage.
It doesn't happen like that, Alex. Nothing. Oh,
no, I mean, you get it, Mark, all the time.
Of course, they're always ripping my clothes off, but then very quickly they put them back on again. I will too.
Don't have nightmares, kids.
No, don't. So am I right in saying back then you would have been working, which I think you were, because I remember seeing that item, you were working with my old partner, Jason Barlow.
That was before Jason Barlow. Oh, no, hang on. Let me just think that. Yeah, yes, probably. Yeah, because you had been on Driven, hadn't you? Obviously, we were very aware of Driven. And James May, of course, was on there. I don't know what happened to him. And
he fired from Driven.
You were doing that program. What was it called? Deals on Wheels, or
Deals on Wheels? Yeah, Deals on Wheels.
And we were all like, "Oh, actually, he's good, isn't he? That Mike Brewer. He's like that Cockney wide boy, but he's sort of like he's good, isn't he? Yeah." And there was a point where we were thinking, who do we need to get somebody like that onto Top Gear? Do we need to sort of up it? But of course, we had Quentin. who is
Oh
the
yeah,
master.
the
But
master
it was just like,
handles
oh,
like
yeah.
the Duchess's tea trolley.
Pardon?
Handles like the Duchess's tea trolley.
Oh yeah, we used to be able to speak fluent Quentin when we were working on the show. But
Cool.
yeah, so we were
Cool.
aware of you, and then Jason Barlow came in, and then he only lasted about one series, and then no James May we got when Jeremy left, James May did a year, and it didn't
He
seem
did
to
it,
work
yeah.
out, and then Jason Barlow came in, and
That's
the
right.
BBC were all over the place at that point. Though they just didn't know what they
They
wanted,
were.
and it was they kept trying to cancel us, and then they'd commission another 50 programs, and it was all over the shop. But anyway,
But you
happy
landed
days.
on you landed your dream job, essentially. I know you say it was a pay cut and all the rest of it, but ultimately you sort of landed the job that you'd always wanted to do. You're now on TV talking about cars, and that then led on to this amazing career doing tons and tons of other stuff and more serious stuff as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, I've always been like curious and interested in telling stories and finding things out. And I think a mistake a lot of people make in television is that they think that television is kind of like a means to, it's a means in itself. I think the best television is where there is some content, where you're telling a story or you're imparting information or you're trying to find something out. If it's just a lot of padding and fluff, then it's at the end of the day, you're sort of like, well, what is the point of this? So, like your show, it's all about buying and selling and then doing the cars up and what the problems are. And you're sort of learning a bit about how to repair cars. And then you're learning a bit about the history of the car. And, so there's something that's interesting about it. And the television that I've done in the main has been about like trying to find out why the transport system's broken, or why big brands have kind of succeeded and other brands have failed, and also about the car years is about cars, the story of the car, why they were great, why they were like they were, why did they turn up like fully formed. No, there was a process and there was risks and there was jeopardy and the company was in trouble, and so people love stories, and that's what I try and do, I suppose.
So that's what you are. You're a storyteller. Same, I love telling stories. So before we get on to talking about the car years, the car years, is it sort of, have you got your ultimate job now? So you started off in Top Gear. You've now got this job where you're sort of more in control of telling the stories of the car years, and you're in control of telling, or is there something, because you're, as I say, your database is full of work you've done. Is there something else out there that you would really love to do?
Well, I would like to do some more documentaries and investigating things, but not but with a twist, not the kind of straightforward documentaries. The documentaries I made were all kind of allowed me the scope. I mean, I love writing stuff, but I also love to sort of improvise and work in the moment and sort of interact with other people. And that's what was great about doing my documentaries, was that basically the camera was always rolling. So when we'd go to a location, it was on, and I'd just be talking to the camera, and then I'd knock on the door and the person would arrive. And and if I thought of something funny to say, I would say it, and if it was good, it would stay in, and if it wasn't, it'd stay out. And
Yeah.
so things would happen, and when we were in an awkward situation, you could sort of leave the camera rolling, and it would feel awkward to watch it. So I do like having the ability to sort of just improvise on the spot. And I think when I first started presenting, I found it quite difficult to do structured pieces to camera because it didn't feel like it was me saying them. And at the time, maybe it wasn't me writing them. So I do like to improvise. And even when I'm doing like the car years, some of it is improvised, but there is definitely a script. And I always think that the best bits, the bits that haven't been sort of planned too much in advance, but you've got to have a plan. You've got to know exactly what the elements are. You can't just go, oh, we'll do it as we go along. So don't get me wrong, I love the car years, and I'm looking forward to the next 15 series, please God. But yeah, I do like a bit more, the sort of fun stuff, and a bit of entertainment type stuff. But if there's no actual content, if you haven't got an objective, it can feel so thin, and it's just not very satisfying for a viewer, I don't think.
Yeah, I totally agree. Absolutely agree. So now talking about the car years, what's really interesting about that is the second series. I remember talking to you and Vicky up on the stage at the NEC about the first series, and then it was such a great show. It was a huge success. Everyone was talking about it and loving it. But looking at this series, I can't remember how it differs in the sense that you've got the band back together. Because when I look at the names in this show, you have brought the band back together, haven't you? Because we've got Vicky Butler-Henderson, Jason Barlow is one of the judges, Richard Porter, who is the script writer for then Top Gear for many years, and you got Erin Baker as well. So you sort of got the best of the best together to enable you to bring this really rich content together.
And Rory Reid, of course.
And Rory Reid, of course, yeah.
I suppose it's you know, the pool of people is relatively shallow. I don't know. I mean, I don't mean that as a. What I mean is that, you know, there are certain people who are. I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who know a lot about cars who are experts, but it's, as you know, being able to do that on television is a different kind of skill. And to make it accessible and to say it in a concise and entertaining way. I mean, sometimes, you know, obviously last night I was watching some of the judges. I was thinking, I don't agree with that. But that's because when I do my script for it, I spend so much time reading and analyzing and studying every nuance and little bit. And you know, if they say something that's even slightly kind of, well, actually, an M3 was not much more than an optioned up 325i. It was, you know, I'm watching the judges, and I'm thinking, you know, because basically I've been doing so much research into the car that I'm doing, and I've read every, you know, road test. I've read stuff in books. I've watched whatever's on YouTube or whatever, you know, and I'm absolutely on it for all the different details. And then they were saying about the M3 was really expensive. Well, the M3 wasn't really expensive compared to an optioned up 325i. It was actually really good value. It wasn't much more than that. Back in those days, you know, the list price on a 325i, you had to add on various equipment. Even like a radio was an optional extra. So once you'd spec'd it up properly with the better wheels and the sports suspension and the this, that, and the other, you were almost at M3 money. So it was seen as being, you know, the best value BMW of all. At one time, a 6 Series was more than a Ferrari 308. I mean, that's how ridiculous the prices were back in the 80s. But anyway, I've totally lost my thread. Oh, I know what we were talking about. The judges, yes. So I worked with Jason Barlow on Top Gear when I was a researcher. Richard Porter, Sniff Petrol, he used to sit next to me because he got his job as a researcher on Top Gear in the same way that I did. He was one of the same intake of people who applied. And so we, you know, and Rory Reid, he was Top Gear as well. These are the people who are good at talking about cars on television, I suppose. So, I mean, Jason Barlow is absolutely fantastic in the series. I don't know why he didn't do more stuff for us, because he's a revelation.
Jason Barlow, listen, I got a funny thing here. I'm looking through the list of styles that you've got. I'm thinking, what does the company car park look like at the Car Years studio? Because you've got Vicky. Vicky's going to roll up in a Porsche 911. That's obvious. Rory will turn up in something like a Skyline R34. Erin Baker will turn up in something that's more sort of, you know, Golf GTI-ish. Richard Porter's going to have a tasty car. You're going to roll up in a TR7, aren't you?
Yeah. I mean, what I love is, Mike, this idea that we all get together in a big studio and, you know, get in the car park and look at each other's cars. Oh, yeah, interesting. Yeah. The judges, I never get to see the judges. You know, the judges, another day's filming, they go and do the judges. And, you know, the first time I saw what the judges had to say was last night, watching it on ITV4. and then thinking, what? Oh, come on! It's got to be the M3. So yeah, but we've also got a few more judges who haven't actually appeared on the in the first two programs. Karen Chandok, Ben Collins, the original Stig, and James Bond's stunt double. And
nice.
We've got a couple of guys from top auction houses as well. They know the stuff. They know the stuff.
They all know their stuff. You got a really good cast. Talking about the cars, though. First of all, before I talk about the cars in the first episode, which was brilliant, by the way, and what's coming up in the series, you've got a TR7, right? Which is my co-presenter, Anton Stid, who's currently in the States. He has a passionate, really worryingly passionate hate, as in I think he needs some kind of attention for it, over a TR7. I've never met a man who just, he really hates them terribly.
And that's why I've absolutely no respect for him. I mean, that's basically, the TR7 is a divisive car. People either love them or hate them, really. And the people who hate them, they don't really know enough about them. That's how I see it. They kind of have a prejudice, and they won't take it on its merits and on its values. They have an aversion to it. So there's no. I don't know. I read something about Antansted and TR7s the other day, and I started getting all cross about it and thinking, oh, well, I'm going to say, if I see him, I'm going to say this. And I thought, no, he just doesn't like them, and as far as I'm concerned, he's missing out. So that I like them. I love them, and I love the fact that not everybody does like them. I love the fact that they're underrated, that they are misunderstood, but when people, sort of eulogize the TR6 and then sort of hammer the TR7, I do find that slightly irritating. The idea that, the TR6 was, absolutely the be all and end all, and should have carried on, something like that. It just put another body on a set of mechanicals from 1952, and it had its own share of, I think it was Motorsport, one of the staff at Motorsport, he bought a TR6 in about 1973 or something, and he filled sort of weeks and weeks of copy in the magazine about all the problems and difficulties and reliability issues he had with it, and he was always taking it back to Triumph, and Triumph were like the factory engineers were sort of trying to fix it for him, and people go, the TR7, and the TR7, the first ones were obviously very badly made, and they had some terrible reliability problems which completely destroyed their reputation within about a year. So, which it never came back from. But it outsold all the other TRs and was, very well thought of in the motoring press at the time.
Yeah, exactly.
But, anyway.
What I've said to Ant is that I was very much alive in the 1970s. Ant was just a spec in the 1970s. And I said, what you don't remember from that period of time, if I try to remember the 1970s, I see a really dirty England with rubbish piled up on the streets when we're on a 3-day week. There's strikes at factories, power cuts, there's strikes everywhere. Everyone was down, that nothing was happy. It all seemed to be dull and grimy and miserable. And that's very much how I remember that period of time. And then all of a sudden, there's these bright orange, bright green, big wedge-shaped cars rolling down the street that added a sense of optimism and light into this grey background. You've got these really bright, sort of futuristic-looking cars driving down the street. And I was captivated. I thought they were bloody amazing. And they lifted the spirits of not only me, but I think the nation.
I'll have to use that. I'll have to use that it actually cheered up Britain during one of its darkest post-war periods. Correct. That's going to be my next article about the
exactly what it did. And it did. And I'm very much a child of that era, and I remember it very well. So I'm with you. I like the TR7. I did one on Wheeler Dealers. Ant wouldn't even get in the sodding thing, but I did it, and I loved it.
I think when people actually drive them, and you need to drive one that's being looked after, that's running properly, etc. with any old car. I mean, you know what it's like. You drive any kind of classic car, and you've almost no idea how representative that particular example is of that car, and it can totally colour your judgment. But the TR7. I mean, I was a kid in the 70s, and I remember being absolutely blown away by a 2-seater sports car with pop-up headlights. I mean, just the idea of that. And it looked, I mean, at that time, you never saw Ferraris or Maseratis or any exotic cars at all. You just, you might see the odd like Chevrolet Camaro or something by, a nightclub owner might have it. And to see one of those was just like mind blowing. Yeah. And my brother went to a local dealership on a Saturday, got some brochures, and he got the TR7 brochure, and that was it. I mean, I was hooked from there on in, and still am.
That's fantastic.
So, wonderful, wonderful cars, and great value, and people are surprised when they drive them how modern they are. They are, you can get them with 5-speed gearboxes. I mean, I drove on the Classic Car Show. I drove a 1977 4-speed TR7, and honestly, it was like a new car. It was so. I said to the owner, who was like the head of the TR Drivers Club, and I said, what have you done to it? He went, nothing at all. It's like a low mileage original car from 1977, one owner for 35 years, and he's had it ever since. And it drove so beautifully. It was so taut and crisp and sharp, and the gears change, the 4-speed, which everybody says is dreadful. It was just a lovely light change. The ratios are really close. And it was like, I cannot believe it. So, please, Ant, don't be so prejudiced. Come on. Is that why you've dropped him? Dropped him from the show?
No, I haven't dropped him. He's still very much a part of the show.
Oh, is he? I thought it was Elvis or something doing it now.
It's Elvis is now taking over on the spanners, only because Ant's trapped in America. He can't get back. And he's got a son out there. So Ant's going to be featuring in the programme. We're going to get him doing a couple of cars and helping out. But we're very much still a family. But for now, it's Elvis at the helm, which is good. Which is good. So talking of sevens, TR7s, your car years, we had the first episode play out, and we had the Mazda, another favourite of mine, a Mazda Rx-7, which you made a case for, and again another passionate car of mine, which I've got one, a Porsche 928.
I made the case for the 928.
I've got a 928. I bought the Wheeler Dealer one from Series 2. I bought it back recently.
What year is it?
1977. So one of the very early ones.
Wow.
Very early. It was a car that was exported. It was exported to Hong Kong. Went to live in Hong Kong, right-hand drive, went to live out there, got looked after by somebody for many, many years. And I bought it in 2004 for Wheeler Dealers. It had just been imported into England. I bought it in 2004.
How much did you pay for it?
In 2004, do you know what, Alex? I can't remember. It's probably about, I don't know, 5 or 6 grand back then. But I've recently bought it back. I think I've given 9 grand for it. It needs repainting. We painted it on the show, 18 years ago or 17 years ago, and it needs repainting again. Yeah. So I'm going to do the paintwork, tidy it up, and drive it. I love the bloody thing. It's wicked.
Was it a TV paint job then that you did on it? Was it like, looks good on the camera, but absolutely rubbish finish?
It was very much a TV paint job. It was very good, actually. I remember at the time it was really good. But those cars are mainly steel and aluminium bonded together at some places in the car, and where the twain should meet, they tend to bubble up a little bit. So it does need a bit more attention. But I'll get it done. I'll get it done beautifully, and then I'll drive that thing. I'll drive the tits off of the bloody thing. I'll love it. So tell us about that show. We had the Porsche 928 and the RX-7.
Well, that was 1978. 1978, the Car of the Year, the only time a sports car has been crowned Car of the Year before, during, or since the 928 in 1978. And it was, it's such a great story because, if you think about it, at that point, Porsche had only ever made rear engine sports cars, with air cooled engines, and and then suddenly they come out with a thing that completely reinvents everything that Porsche stands for. So it's fascinating to think why. And then, it is so advanced. It is so, there's so many interesting innovations on it. I mean, just in terms of the cabin, having air conditioning that cools the glove box in 1977, 78, and having a joystick for balancing the speakers, being able to adjust the seat in multiple directions, having sun visors for the rear seat passengers, it's like, wow, this is quite incredible. And everything's leather, like the headlining and the dashboard and the sun visors. And it's just like, and I mean, remember the 70s? I mean, everything had like bumpers, didn't it? Like chrome bumpers, or maybe chrome bumpers with some black plastic on them. And this had no bumpers visible to the naked eye. And it had body-coloured polyurethane covers that were deformable and would bounce back in 1978. I mean, when the Maestro had something similar in 1983, people thought that was pretty far out. And it had happened 5 years before. So, it's a fascinating car. And of course, the Mazda Rx-7, I mean, making the rotary engine a sort of a viable proposition was incredible, really, what they achieved with that, because it had broken NSU, and it had seen, I mean, so many companies had sort of like bought patents, and Citroen put out the birotor, and that was a disaster, and they had to buy them all back and crush them. And I think Mercedes made a rotary engine supercar prototype, didn't they? And they did. Everybody thought, and Rolls-Royce was like, oh well, this will be it, because of the refinement and the you can more space for passengers and things, and it's lightweight, and it just, the fewer moving parts. But I mean, it's sad, really, that there are no rotary engine cars on sale now, and that although there's a chance it might be a range extender for a future Mazda hybrid or electric car.
How many times in the program, because me and Ed and me and Ant have done this, but how many times did you manage to squeeze Wankle into the program?
Not as many as we would have liked, obviously. But Vicky was making the case for the Mazda. So I find it very hard to try and give her any credit at all.
I think if me and you would have written that skit, it would have been, look at what I've got, Alex. It's the best Wankle engine out there on the market. And you would have said, I love a Wankle. Everyone loves a Wankle. I think the Wankle engine is revolutionary. And I would have said, exactly. I mean, who doesn't agree that the Wankle just works because of its lightweight, its packaging, you get more people in the car. And we would have used that word Wankle to death.
Yeah, and I think that's the difference. That's the difference, Mike, between our show and your show, because we aim a little bit higher. I'll just say that we just try
a bit more highbrow. You're a bit more highbrow.
Yeah, we're not going for the easy laughs.
So what else is coming up? What else is coming up in the series that you can? There must be something else coming up in the series that really got your juices flowing, really got you excited. Something you can share with us and tease.
For me, every series is like one car that stands out for me, and this time it was the Citroen SM. I have driven one on a car program before, and this one, I think this was just a better driver, I think, and I was just sitting in it waiting for the call to sort of come through shot and do an up and by, and I just thought, what, this is the perfect car for me. There's room for the family. It's, from an engineering perspective, it's so fascinating and interesting, but it all works. The ride quality is amazing. The steering, the speed sensitive power steering with the powered. If you turn it all the way, it's one turn each way, 2 turns lock to lock, and when you let go, it powers back into the middle. So reversing and maneuvering is an absolute breeze. And the engine is just a beautiful thing. The sound, when you're pottering around, you can't really hear it. But when you start to rev, it just makes this beautifully cultured, thoroughbred kind of racing car of the 50s kind of sound. And the engine is based on a kind of 1950s sports car racing engine. And everywhere, and these buttons and things, and they've not just put things there because that's what everybody else does. They've thought it all through. It's so intelligent as a car. And it's, one figure that blows my mind is the original 2.7 was 137 miles an hour, the fastest front-wheel drive car in the world. It was as fast as a Jensen Interceptor, but needed 100 fewer horsepower to get to the same top speed. That just shows the efficiency of the body. Back in 1970, when the drag coefficient of most cars was about 0.45 to 0.5, and this was like in the low threes. I know, it just blows my mind.
Brilliant. Well, the good news is I have one of those. I've got one for Sal, actually.
Oh, yeah. You're just doing this on purpose. You just let me, don't you, go, and then you go, oh, yeah, I've got one.
I have mentioned it online. I've got one for Sal, and recently it's been used by the Grand Tour, so Clarkson, Hammond and May have had it, and they loved it. In fact, Jeremy Clarkson tweeted about my car, saying it's the most beautiful car ever, and he absolutely loved it. But no, that car reluctantly is for sale, but what a thing to behold. I mean, I bought it because of all the reasons you said, and I bought it because it's the soundtrack it's the soundtrack of the 70s. You get in that car, you put your foot down, and it evokes the sound of a thoroughbred racing car from that period of time, and it just handles amazingly. I just love the way they drive and handle, and how technologically advanced they are for their time.
And it's all done before, pre-electronics, and it's got, electronic brake force distribution. Well, it's a mechanically powered system. So if you've got a load of weight in the back, it will still stay level, and when you brake, it will stay level, and self-leveling headlamps, and
there you go.
The turn-round corners. I mean, the one we had is an American spec car, as you can see. So it has the seal beam units. Apparently, they are rather more effective than the standard ones, the owner was telling me.
They're an amazing. Vicky's got the perfect outfit on for that car as well. She looks amazing.
She looks like Princess Anne, doesn't she?
She does, very much so. Yeah, very much so. Oh, lovely. Yeah, I love those cars. As I say, one of my favourite all-time cars. I've owned one for several years. Mine's in Vert Argenti, that lovely green colour. And
I drove a green one. I love it. There's nothing I don't like about it.
The keys
only the fact that you've got one and I haven't.
Well, the keys are always yours anytime you want it. So we've got that to look forward to, and we've got a big run of this series, haven't we? We've got 8 episodes in this current
episodes,
series. 8 episodes, so there's a lot to look forward to.
So it's on Monday nights at 8 p.m. We have 2 programs back to back, 8 p.m. and 8:30 p.m. And it's 1-1 so far.
1-1, and it's on ITV4, and people can catch up with it on the ITV hub as well, can't they?
That's right. Yeah.
And if people want to find you, Alex, they want to find out a bit more about you, they want to get in touch with you, have you got your social media tags at hand?
It's Alex Riley Now. It's all Alex Riley Now. So my website is alexrileynow.co.uk. How do you do? alexrileynow.co.uk. I'm thinking, is it an email? Is it? Anyway, so alexrileynow.co.uk and at Alex Riley Now on Twitter. I've started doing Instagram. I don't know what the hell I'm doing with it. It's a nightmare. So I am on Instagram, but I just don't know what I'm doing. And when you look on 2 or 3 I've done, I mean, the first one I didn't put a caption on it, and then I did another one, and all the pictures weren't. They were all. Couldn't see the blooming picture. I mean, it's just I'm learning. I keep going on looking at videos how to do it, but Twitter at the moment is probably the best bet.
Don't worry, you'll get there. You will get there in the end. Alex, it's been again just so good to hang out with you. We got some. The good news is live events are opening up again. So
yes,
we've got some live events coming up, and I'm hoping that you're going to be at a few. Silverstone Classic, British Motor Show, the NEC Classic Car Show in Birmingham.
I'll be at some of them. I might. Yeah. Can't talk about the other one. But anyway, yeah, I'm hoping to get around. Especially if somebody would pay me to, do some sort of hosting or chatting, or Mike, come on, do me a favor. Many years ago, myself and Mike were at the same agency. He had the more senior agent, obviously, and so I used to get crumbs off his table when they'd say we need a TV person. Mike would say, "I'm not doing that. Oh, it's rubbish." And I'll go, "I'll do it. I'll do it, please." So any more of them, any you don't want to do, just send them my way, Mike. Okay?
I will do, Alex. Well, I'm really looking forward to seeing you, buddy. I need a hug. I need a hug.
I want to check your vaccine passport first. Okay.
You can check it. I'm double jabbed. Every time I went in there, I backed in, bent over, pulled my trousers down. I went, "No, Mr. Brewer, no. It's the wrong. We want your arm." I go, "Oh, God."
Oh, lovely.
Mate,
they're hopefully getting counselling now, those poor
poor ladies. We make them cakes. My wife at the COVID centre up the road where they're jabbing people. They're all volunteers, as you said earlier. My wife has been making them trays of cakes and running them up there for them.
Nice
all she's done is made everyone the same size as me, which is great. She's trying to normalise the world. Alex, it's been an absolute pleasure and an honour to have you on the show. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
I've enjoyed myself very much, Mike. Thank you very much.
And I can't wait to bump into you in the very near future. In the meantime, ladies and gentlemen, that was good, wasn't it? Hey, Alex Riley, let's do it all again very soon. And to play you out, I'm going to just put this on full screen. Here's a bit of music. See you all soon. Ta-da!